one that murdered that one, talking all that bullshit. I'ma put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friends, which includes, but it's not limited to, Mr. Sylvia. What's poppin', Jesse?
One day you're going to say which includes and is only.
And I always fuck up.
And I'm going to be so happy.
2 days in a row.
I've designated you as the only one.
He got a little shook during the JRB one. If you go back and watch that intro,
I fumbled my words because I didn't know exactly what I was going to say.
He went with a very special.
Yeah,
very special.
Right.
And then,
he got too excited.
Yeah, it was a little.
I fumbled my words because I didn't know exactly what I was going to say or what I was going to
You're in
call
the presence of greatness.
That is true, but I also was like, how the fuck do you say Jean Robert Leblanc?
You don't. You just say JRB. There's a reason why they call him JRB.
It is. His name is a little fucky. It's Jean Robert Blonde. And it's pronounced Jean Robert Belland.
Yeah. It was going through my head on how to say it, and I was like...
Well, there's the American
JRB.
version, then there's the French version.
Yeah, you should just say, "What's up, Bobby?"
that gives me real Joe Dierte vibes.
Yeah.
He's like, don't try to church it up,
movie.
son. Yeah. Oh, unbelievable movie.
Yeah.
I mean, he's Bobby from now on. He came on my podcast, he's fucking Bobby.
Bobby.
Your podcast.
Yeah. This is my podcast.
I guess that
take it
settles
over.
it.
Now we know whose bedroom we're running out of in a
Not
couple weeks.
Our podcast.
Not according to the thumb
Yeah,
today.
what the hell?
That's just mean.
That's some shady shit.
Shout out to Poker Org putting Melissa on the cover and leaving Lamanna off. And the best part is, it was a cartoon. You could have just gotten a turtle in there.
I mean, I guess, I see where I stand in this world.
Well, I mean,
Melissa hasn't been on the podcast in 2 years.
I know.
Literally years.
Still more important than me.
It's fucked up, bro.
she got pregnant, and that was the end of it. We didn't even give her a farewell tour. It was just like, "Hey guys, I'm pregnant." It's like, "All right, well, see you later."
Yeah, I guess we'll never see you again.
The first time I came on was on that cruise. I feel like that must have been one of the last times she was on.
Yes.
If that's the case. Wow.
That
That might have
accurate.
been the last time.
Damn.
Yeah, maybe one. No, because she was coming on weekly for a bit thereafter.
Okay.
Like once a week or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is that where little Dino was conceived?
Let's do the math.
April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. No, this was a summer
yeah.
conception.
Oh, that's right, because that was, yeah. Well, I don't know. It's pretty close.
Close.
Is it okay to have this conversation right now?
All right, boys, we got our title for the day.
The baby is born.
Listen,
There's no hiding
yeah.
it.
She clearly doesn't want to come here and do anything about it.
Yeah, you know the rules, Guapo. If you're not in studio, you get trashed.
That's right.
Got it.
Good point.
Story checks out.
Conrad, I just want to say the only reason people ever notice mistakes is because it's done so well most of the time.
That's right.
Sure.
That's an excellent point to put out there.
Appreciate that.
Keep on crushing, buddy.
Yeah.
Sincerely, your one true friend.
My dude.
Nothing has been more consistent with the show than Conrad's intros.
That's true.
That's abundantly clear.
Right.
All right. Wow, you guys took that as serious, huh? Okay.
That's true.
All right, well,
100%. I don't know what you're talking
I
about.
mean,
That's
it's a low bar.
That's true. No, that's where the truth.
We're speaking way too many truths on April Fool's Day.
I know.
That's also a very fair point. We do have a lot of poker's best attempts at April Fool's joke. I hate this holiday.
It's horrible.
Oh, you do.
It's such a boomer humor holiday, and fucking Guapo and Lamanna are like pigs in shit. They're just
come on, man.
giggling
Dad
like,
jokes are great.
Yeah,
Dad
we're
jokes
all
are
here
great.
for it. That's for sure.
Well, tell me a strip club joke.
No, that's not one.
Come on.
I'll go something that's a little bit more PG-13. What did the O say to the Q?
What?
Dude, your dick is hanging out.
That's kind of funny.
That's a great joke. I never heard that
That's kind
one.
of funny. That's a little crass, a little locker room humor. That's not so like a boomer dad wouldn't quite get that one.
Right.
I don't.
I think
get
that
it.
one was pretty good.
I don't get it.
And a Q is just an O with dick hanging out.
Okay.
You know,
It's like, what did the 0 say to the 8? You know that one?
No.
Nice belt.
Yeah.
see now that's boomer humor.
Okay.
That's the exact same joke.
Right.
That's the exact same joke translated for your father.
Right.
But do you guys know what the 0 said to the 10?
No.
Skinny girlfriend.
Nice.
Fucking brutal.
I mean, you can go all the way back to first grade and say, why is 6 afraid of 7?
No.
7, 8, 9.
No.
You certainly can.
absolutely.
You certainly can, Tortoise. These jokes are way better than any April Fool's joke I've seen on Twitter so far.
The April
to
Fool's
be
jokes
fair.
have been pretty bad. I think we have a short list of them.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. The Kessler one got me for a second.
Of course it did.
You are the worst.
You are the target audience. It's
Oh,
literally.
stop. I'm not, come on.
It's literally a
that
question
was
of
it.
can we dupe Guapo?
Is that the litmus test?
Yeah,
I like it.
The thread in question is Alan Kessler announced. Okay, we'll go to the Barry Carter one.
I mean, it's relevant, right?
It's relevant for you.
Fucking asshole.
Probability of getting fooled. April Fool's Day near 0. Poker player GoFundMe scam 100%.
That's a great.
That's actually really accurate. There's
Somebody
way too
should
many.
keep Rampage off of Twitter today.
Okay, there's a lot of examples of it. It's not just Rampage, though he's guilty of many. Dustin the Closer being number 1, the sports bet guy being number 2, whatever the fuck that scam was, I don't remember. But let's not forget, near and dear to our heart, one Marley Sprague once fell for the IRS scam and found herself at Walmart buying hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but hundreds if not thousands of dollars of gift cards to send to some Indian call center to pay her back taxes.
No.
Oh yeah, April Fool's, baby.
How? That's
She's told this story before. It's an incredible one. And I get it up until the gift card. Like when that
The IRS is not accepting gift cards.
Right. When that scam first came through, it must have been like 2018-ish. I remember I got the text and I immediately called my lawyer, my tax attorney, and I was like, hey, like, is this a real concern? You know, like they're calling me. It says IRS when they call me. And he just replies, he goes, under absolutely no circumstance will the IRS ever reach out to you via phone. And I was like, okay, they're scammers. That's fine.
Right.
They'll reach out to you 2 ways: mail. And police.
Yeah.
That's how you're getting
Which
contacted.
mail is like,
It's a very thick envelope, so
it's just really dumb. Like I've underpaid by a few $100 here and there throughout past years. I think one year my biggest balance carried forward was like $5,000 or something like that, where we just, we missed a little bit in the filing, and they've sent letters, but I check my mail like once every 6 months. And by the time I got them, the interest accrued was like 20%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, this is such an asshole way to contact me.
Luckily, I have a responsible girlfriend because the exact same thing happened to me. I underpaid by $70 or something like that. But I literally do not remember the last time I checked the mail. But I don't have to because Michelle does.
Well, I can attest to that. We've never gotten the mail here.
Right. Wow.
Well, if you're anything like me, you don't check the mail because you're afraid you'll get something from the IRS. Like, I now have my
99.9% of it is junk, so I'm not going to search through that for the 0.1%.
It should be a law that you're not allowed to advertise via snail mail.
It should be a law that you.
It's environmentally, like, send an email.
Yeah,
Also, it should be a law
It's so
that
bad.
nothing important is allowed to come through the mail.
Oh, so we should just get rid of the mail.
There you go.
I think if you did it my way, where you just eliminated junk mail, then it's okay to send important things in the mail because you would look for them.
Guys,
Yeah,
Kramer was ahead of his time, all right?
What did he do?
He stopped receiving mail.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that. I mean, in the show maybe, but I don't think in real life you could do that.
Well, he couldn't do it in the show. They brought him in the back room and they put him under a light. And you don't remember this? This was a great.
I don't remember this.
I'm going 2 days in a row with Seinfeld references. I feel real good right now.
Right.
I feel
Might
like
do
I
a
don't
little
remember.
shadow boxing.
I feel like I don't remember this because Newman was the mailman, so it could have been one of like any episode.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's just like, I don't need it. And Newman's like, what about bills? He's
He
like, I'll
found
just
it already.
auto pay.
The bank. And then, well, what about your cards and letters?
Email, telephones, fax machines.
Yeah, Kramer had it figured out.
See?
And we just got demonetized. God damn
No, we didn't. That's too quick.
it. Why do you think that it has
I'll take
anything?
action on it. $100.
Okay, booked.
It's booked.
Yes.
I just want to know why you think it has anything to do with the amount of time.
It
Well,
does.
the thing
I
is, if you
think.
don't go full screen, if you show it in the corner and you play it for like 5 to 10 seconds, like you're probably going to be fine.
You made that up.
I did not
Source
make that up.
made up.
If you look at Joe Rogan or if you look at any of these comedy podcasts, they will all put up stuff, but they don't put it up for a long time. You'll actually hear the producer say, hey, we got to keep this really short. Because it's fair use.
They just get demonetized. But
Okay.
like Rogan doesn't care. He signed $1 billion contract with Spotify.
Okay. Well, we'll find out tomorrow.
Okay. Well, how much are we betting? How much did I make?
$100
real dollars?
Well, you're going to be fine because I stupidly talked over it anyways. So you're just definitely not going to get in trouble.
I don't think it works that way.
Oh, well. You want to book it?
You try.
I believe as long as you add to the content, you can't get in trouble. So
it's called fair use.
Yes.
yeah. So if
can,
you have reactions to it or whatever.
yes, you can dispute it, claiming fair use. But
Oh, I see.
the algorithm will still crawl for any audio or video that's utilized that is copyrighted.
Guapo, just make sure you don't put any pirate highlights up later.
Okay. Sounds good.
Trust me, the MLB doesn't
Will,
give
will it tell you specifically why they demonetize you?
Yep.
They'll say this clip here.
Yeah, we get. I'll tell you, you guys don't know the work that goes on behind the scenes.
Every day.
We get demonetized every single day for the intro song,
I know. Then you
which
have to
we
go-
paid
yeah.
for. So every single day, I have to go into the back end of YouTube Studio. I have to go and dispute the license for this song. I have to add this long text that I got from Motion Array, not Motion Array, maybe Motion Array. I don't know. One of the purchase
SoundCloud
sites.
It's probably
SoundCloud,
Motion Array.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I have to submit it, and every single day they accept it. This has been going on for 3 years.
I
That's
can't
so
Brian, you don't know
I
this is going
can't-
on your podcast?
believe. Oh, I knew it was going
You're not
on.
aware of this?
He's
Well, I'm his lackey.
He's talking about this for a long time. I can't believe you haven't outsourced that. That is
Who
amazing.
am I going to outsource it to? You?
Me, anybody.
At the rate that the audio goes up on Spotify, I don't think I can trust it.
What do you mean?
I get complaints every fucking day.
No.
If
These
ever there's a
people- 'cause-
complaint come across my desk, it's that Lamanna's not keeping up on the Spotify, Apple Podcast side.
Yesterday's will be up later today.
These people.
Wait, are we on Spotify?
Spotify, Apple
Everything.
Music. Sometimes we are.
Actually, you guys just made me remember. I have to text my mom the link because
Oh, yeah.
I was on the phone with her and she was like, "Oh, I want to watch this podcast." So if you guys could keep
Goddamn
it real,
Yeah, PG-13.
yeah, about the jokes.
I mean, it's April Fool's, buddy. I'll do what I can.
Guapo, back to that stripper.
Just say sorry, Marlene, whenever you make a
Right. Okay.
dirty joke.
You got it. We can also add video to Spotify. Again, I know you know this. You just don't choose not to.
Video to Spotify?
Yeah, we could be a video podcast on there.
Interesting.
It actually would save you. You don't have to separate the audio from the video.
Well, no, you'd still have to.
Why?
Well, the separating the audio from the video is one click.
Mm.
It's the cutting off the 5 minutes that
Right, that's
is
the annoying part for you.
the tedious part.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah.
And I can only do that from my computer at my house because that's the only computer that has the software for
Right.
me to use
Right.
it.
All right.
So I have to be home at a specific time, and sometimes I'm just not home.
Yeah,
for
you're
days on end. For days on end, I'm not there.
The tortoise is just man
out.
about town.
Out and about.
Can't find him.
Oh,
Getting it
man.
popping somewhere.
So going back to the April Fool's thread, it appears Kessler has been announced as the TD to Run Good poker tour.
I, for one, am very happy for him.
Yeah, I mean it's a long time coming.
Mhm.
He seems to be very passionate about the job. Really waiting his whole life, as far as I can tell. The imagery is amazing here.
Is there
Just in the Bay Area. I thought he was going to be a traveling.
No, just in the Bay
director.
Area.
I
What
see.
what is Kessler's main complaints about tournament structures? And is it
Well, it depends
they're
on
too,
the day.
They're too fast.
It really depends
They're
on
too
the day.
fast. they're
Everything's too
slow.
fast. Everything's too fast.
Yeah.
Always,
for sure.
always too fast.
Mhm.
Skipping
Yeah.
levels.
You need the 275, 550 level in there.
Yeah, I mean, he really hates the big small blind levels.
Mhm.
You know, the repeat levels, the 1K levels. No, that doesn't happen. The 1K 1500 level.
Oh, okay. So it has to be exactly half. He doesn't like
the asymmetry.
Yeah.
I've never understood that, by the way. If anything, I want every tournament to move faster.
Of course.
Especially, like, I think the perfect tournament would be turbo until the money, and then scale, sort of what GG does at their final table, scale back the blinds after you've made the money and slow it down. But, like, do we really need 2 or 3 days to figure out if we're in the money or not? That's kind of a nightmare to me.
Do you know the circuit main had 100, 100, 100, then 200, 200, 200?
That's one of the dumbest things
I
ever
almost
heard
had
of.
I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
One of the dumbest things.
I'll tell you what's going on. Kessler sent enough letters. I'm serious.
That's
to be fair, I say dumbest things because I assume that they didn't repeat the blinds. Like, I assume it wasn't big blind tournament the whole way through.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, repeating the blinds at the beginning is so stupid.
Therefore, it becomes really stupid. Like, if you want to have a different structured event where the small blind is equal to the big blind throughout the duration of the event,
That's cool.
Yeah.
more power to you. That sounds go nuts. But to do it for the first level of 100 so that you don't have quarter chips in play, fine. I get it. We'll accept that. The 200 level though.
That scratched
that is
my head,
some level of,
like, obviously they do the 1000
idiocy.
1500 because of color up.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
These
it's
are all
fine.
great. I
Yeah,
like
they're
this.
all-
Moves
right.
things along.
Right, exactly.
I like the bigger small blind. Like, it's the equivalent of like the big ante levels that used to occur when antes were incremental and everybody was putting their own up. There were 3 different ante structures at any given time in a tournament, and that played into their strategy. There were times where the ante was really, really small. There were times where the ante was very big. So you could have, like, you know,
I think it was like 1/6, 1/8, 1/10. Something like that.
That sounds
Something like
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I can't remember if 1/6 or 1/8 was the biggest, but yeah, I think like 1/10 was probably the smallest, something along those lines. And yeah, it's just like, you know, you bake that in. I'm much happier with big blind ante now.
Oh yeah.
That you know, for speed and a million other reasons, but it did take away that little bit of structural nuance that you could kind of fix into strategy. Having a few levels of large small blind is fun. It's cool. I'm okay with it. I'm even okay with there being the occasional level of like 100, 100, or if you have to do 1K, 1K because there's no 500 on the table, fine. Like, whatever. I don't care. That's all fine and good. But doing it for the sake of doing it at 200, 200 is one of the bigger oversights. Not I shouldn't say bigger oversights, just one of the easier oversights to catch, where it's just like, yeah,
Maybe we
you just do a 100 small blind.
And I think like, it's very important too that it's clear to people that you want the good part of the structures to exist later on in the tournament.
Yeah.
The early parts of a tournament aren't important.
Yes.
You know, I think that might be changing quite a bit since the advent of high roller tours, where the structures are relatively fast.
Yeah.
With how much work has been done in ICM world, I don't know that having a good structure. Look, I might be talking a little out of pocket. I don't play a lot of events, and I definitely don't study much in the way of ICM models. But I'm hearing as many complaints about like WPT final tables being way too deep and way too slow as I have hearing that, like, you know, tournaments are too fast to start.
Yeah, but you're never going to hear those complaints from people who are at the final table, right? Because
I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, a 14-hour final table is like pretty grueling.
Yeah.
That's tough, but the thing is like you sign up for a tournament, and let's say it's a WPT, so it's 3.5K. By the time you get to the final table, your stack is going to be worth somewhere between like $100,000 and $400,000.
Yeah.
Like, playing those extra hours are just so reasonable. You're doing this every couple hundred tournaments.
I guess the point that I'm getting at, though, is like, because ICM is what it is, it often incentivizes just like slower play, slower pace of play. And I don't even necessarily mean taking your time. I mean, like, so many stacks are handcuffed.
Yeah, and you play more passively post flop,
right.
And you do a lot of things differently. Although there is generally more 3-betting and 4-betting, which is interesting.
Yeah, but again, from the televised side, seeing fewer and fewer flops, turns, and rivers is a worse product, not better.
That's fair. But
this is just the evolution of strategy, right?
But I'm just saying, like from every person who plays a poker tournament's perspective, you want the structure to be good when there's a lot of money involved, and you want it to matter or be faster when there's much less money involved.
Yeah. Like in general.
I think you can make a bit of an argument for the recreational in the opposite direction, though.
Just because they don't see the end of the tournament.
The majority of the levels they play are early. And when they do get there late, yes, if it's fast and they bust early, they'll be mad. But if it's fast and they win quickly, they're super elated.
So sure. I was thinking about that, but my counter argument would be, and I'm not saying I'm right about this counter argument.
Not either,
this is speculation. Yeah, like my counter argument is the actual recs don't mind because they don't want to waste hours and hours of their life to not make the money.
I agree. I think
the people who care are like the like semi-pros / like the guys who play cash and don't play that many tournaments.
Yeah,
I need a good structure for whatever reason.
If they're playing one tournament a year,
I would take it even further than that. I think it's like, pardon my French, but I think it's the shit regs that have convinced themselves they have a massive edge.
Yeah, it's like the nit regs.
It's the guy who shows up for level 1 every single event because
easy.
that's where all the value is.
All the money comes from 100, 100, 100.
Right.
No, 200, 200, 200.
No,
is what
and then you have 100, 200, 200. Then 200, 200, 200.
Oh.
Then 200, 300.
Of course, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
that's the those first
I've had
2 hours. That's where it all comes from.
You know something's awry when you don't play tournaments, and that's like your belief. Now, I'm not saying it's your belief, obviously, but that's like your belief. And then you got like a guy, for example, Pads, who's like, guys, max late regging these tournaments is kind of the best thing that you could possibly do. And like, maybe you're wrong about that.
It's pretty interesting because I've had a lot of really long, in-depth conversations about this because from my perspective, I don't play MTTs, but I do a fair amount of investing in them. And from an investor's point of view, all I care about is maximizing ROI. Whereas from the horse's point of view, they're a little bit more concerned about maximizing hourly, right? So what often comes up is from an ROI perspective, it's how can we make the most amount of money with every single event that we play? And from the hourly perspective, it's like, well, how can I make the most amount of money for every event that I play efficiently, right? And I've gone back and forth with people way, way, way deeper in the MTT streets and way smarter with modeling this stuff. And it seems to be pretty uniform that the only thing that gets people hung up on the early levels that keeps returning them to the notion of maybe I should play from the start is how badly people play deep. But the quick counter that I always offer, and it seems to be relatively accepted, is how many big blinds per 100 could you possibly make in the first 5 hours of an MTT to where that win rate then compounds into increasing your likelihood of winning the event or raising your ROI so much so that it's worth investing all this extra time.
Yeah, you're starting to ask the real questions that are zooming out that people hate thinking about. Like for example, and I know this is different, but it's like kind of similar thought process. People will sell action at whatever 40% markup. And you'll be like, okay, to be a buyer, I need you to have like at least a 60% ROI, right? Let's really talk about this field. Where is that 60% coming from? You've got this field with like 40 regs and 4 fish. Are these fish giving up so much EV, or are you that much better than the regs? And when they start breaking those sort of things down, like it becomes problematic really quick, and like a bubble is bursted for a lot of people. Yeah. And I think it's similar with that. Like everyone just wants to like live in this little happy land of I'm making so much in the early levels, and then you're like, dude, you're making like 8 big blinds per 100 off of a few fish, and what does that mean for your stack? That's like a tiny fraction of your stack.
The chips are just depreciating as the levels go up, and
and also it's like it's not much of your stack when you play 100 100 like you have a what would we start like 40k stacks and all these tournaments? It doesn't matter.
Right.
It demonstrates the difference between qualitative analysis and quantitative, in my opinion. So what happens is it's very easy, but in my experience, very lazy to just say we're printing in the early levels. It's like, okay, from a qualitative standpoint, abundantly true, but let's quantify that, right? How are you printing, or how much are you printing for? Let's give somebody an outrageous win rate, 15 big blinds per 100. It's like, okay, so you're making 15 big blinds per 100 for the first level. Well, that win rate has to go down level over level because you have less depth level over level, right? So let's say that your win rate depreciates by 25% level over level. So you're making 15 big blinds per 100 in the first level. That is 40 minutes long. So you're actually seeing 17 hands. We'll say 15 hands for ease.
Oh, and they're all so slow, by the way.
Right.
We could throw that in there too.
Yeah. So it's like, you're playing 15 hands. Well, let's say it's an hour level. So 20 hands in an hour. And I think that's being generous, right? So you're playing 20 hands, which is now 1/5 of your win rate. So you're making on average 3 big blinds in that particular level. Now, the following level, you lose 25% of that win rate. So immediately we're losing 3.5 big blinds. So now you're making 11.5 big blinds. Again, over 1/5 of that win rate. So now you're making, 2.25 big blinds or whatever. And when you start to add all that up, it's like, where are you going to be then at the end of level 6? It's like you're going to have increased your stack by 8% on average, 10% on average.
Yeah.
Those chips are worthless.
Right.
They're just in the ICM model, because now we can convert it from chip EV to ICM value when you reach that point. It's like, what's the ICM value on average of having 8% more chips? It's like pennies.
What it kind of ends up equating to is
You think that-
if you're at all good at cash and you can print a decent hourly at cash, it almost always makes sense to play an equivalent cash game and max late reg a tournament.
Yeah, of course, without question. And I think that's the right thing to put an emphasis on, because we've gone the route of specialization harder than ever before. When Brian and I were coming up, and I'm sure this is true of you too, it was about EV chasing. So you just got good at games, period. It was like, I like poker, I'll be good at poker. So you got good at MTTs, you got good at No Limit Hold'em. If you had to play PLO, you figured it the fuck
online.
out. Yeah, sit and goes.
Get in the min bet streets.
Right,
Yeah.
you play limit maybe from here and there if the game's really juicy. Play heads up. I played every fucking format coming up. I say that I'm dust at PLO, but I'm talking modern PLO. I've probably played 500 to 1,000 hours of live PLO in my life pre-Black Friday. During the summers,
That's pretty sick.
during the summers in 2000, so I was a No Limit Hold'em cash grinder. That was the majority of where I spent my time. But in 2008, 2009, and half of 2010, during the summer, I only played PLO. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that 5, 10, 20 PLO was softer than 5, 10 No Limit Hold'em at that juncture.
That's funny you say that, because I've literally, the first 3 or 4 years I lived in Las Vegas, I'd play some pretty high stakes PLO games. And I've always said to people when they're like, oh, you're good at PLO, I'm like, I don't know if I'm good. I'm better than the people in this game.
I'm sure I was terrible. But what I was very good at early in my career was understanding how to gamble better than other people. So just inherently, I understood how equities ran. And that was very powerful in a game like PLO, where people are terrified, right? When you realize that you have an equity advantage, or you realize that you can fold someone off of their equity advantage because it feels to them like it's flipping at best, you're able to just print a lot of money. And it was actually a big red line game in the early 2000s. Now PLO is very much a blue line game because people understand not to fold, right? So I could never get good at today's version of modern PLO. For sure escapes me. I'm sure that there's a way to be a redliner in PLO, but it's got to be a lot more rare than a redliner in.
I'm sure you have enough
No
poker
Limit
sense
Hold'em.
that if you wanted to get good at PLO.
Sure, maybe, but it's a
not
fool's
worth
it's a
it,
fool's
right?
errand
Yeah,
in
of
my
course,
opinion.
of course.
There's
Right?
still a lot of good redlining spots for what it's worth.
I'm not saying that there's.
People are obviously much better.
Yeah, I'm not trying to imply that it's a zero redline game period, but I'm trying to say that I think about how high stakes Hold'em has evolved, and I have maybe 6 high stake games available to me. And whether or not they play squid determines whether or not you are going to be able to redline really hard, or you're going to have to play a much more cooperative game, so to speak, where you're going multi-way more often, you're trying to show down winners more often. You're basically playing more of a blue liner strategy. And of the 6 available games to me, it's literally a 50-50 mix. And my strategy is wildly different between the two. Yeah. When I show up to a game where there's no squid, it's a little bit of an older crowd, and what have you, it's I intend to win no money at Showdown. Like any money I win at Showdown is just a bonus because I'm just going to print so fucking hard through the aggressive nodes and never having to show my cards. When I go to a game where it's like we're playing Squid or Progressive Squid or the lineup is at least full of people who desire to play Squid, even if we don't get it on, it's like, okay, well, I know that this is going to be a 4 and 5 way, multi-way type of game. I'm going to have to show down a lot of winners in order to profit. And I have to be really mindful about how I curate my bluffs because people are going to fucking call. There's no lack of money going in with good hands. And that's the big separator. When you start to shift to PLO, it's way more of this crowd. There's no lack of money going in when it comes to like good hands, you know? And I'm sure that there are environments that are more like the former where people are just like nut peddling and playing too passively and you could redline them to death. But that's not the over encompassing theme of modern day PLO, in my opinion. Maybe online, but like for sure not live.
I like the way that you differentiated the different type of games and how you think about them. I think what's going on with PLO is people are just getting better, and I'm not saying you're not saying that, but
totally agree with that.
One of the better like macro quotes on poker in general, but they were talking about No Limit. I think they were talking about Heads Up. I think it was Galfon back in the day, but it might not have been. Basically said, look, like everyone who plays at this point professionally, he meant, but you could apply it to almost most people now. Mm-hmm. Like they're gonna get the big pots mostly right.
Right.
Like it's just you focus on the big pots, you get better at the big pots. It's like it really comes down to like who wins the small pots. And PLO is like similar where yeah, like probably the mistake people are making in the big pots was over folding a lot, especially in like 3-bet pots when you're too tight pre, so you're like super aces heavy and then you have a bunch of problematic boards. Now people are getting a lot better at those pots and they're just aware of like, if I check, like I can't be folding infinite, so I have to like call down with some weak hands or whatever. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's like it really is just an evolution of people getting better at these games.
Yeah, I think that was the ultimate point that I was trying to make when we went into this tangent to begin with, is that people have gotten significantly better because the desire to specialize has been amplified so much. You're either a PLO player or you're not. You're either a No Limit Hold'em cash player or you're an MTTer, right? Like there's very little crossover in the Venn diagram. And the way this was introduced was you were kind of mentioning if you're a cash game player who dabbles in tournaments, you're almost always better served to just max and go forward. And where I was going to take that is I think what we're going to find as win rates continually decrease and people begin to understand not just the variance that is fixed to MTTs, but additionally how you actually basically define ROI and what some concrete numbers are whenever we break it down. Once those numbers become like pretty inherently understood amongst pros, what's going to happen is less specialization. You're going to have to see MTT guys spending those early levels grinding cash instead because their hourly is just 10x. And it's more important for them to try to supplement the chase for the big score than it is for them to try to grind out an extra 8 to 12% starting stack carrying forward into this event. And I think you're going to see mixed games regain popularity. And we've already seen this movement quite a bit. PGT has done a great job putting on a mixed series once or twice a year, every year for the last couple of years. It's growing in popularity. They just ran it. It had some of the biggest fields they've ever done. They're doing a PLO series now. I don't think that we're ever going to see the day where PLO, the Ethereum of poker, flips No Limit Hold'em, the Bitcoin of poker. But I think we'll constantly hear that chatter. And I do think that the games grow simultaneously. Like, I don't think it's one of those things where the more popular No Limit Hold'em gets, the more people forget about PLO. It's still just a derivative of the same game. It's like the 7-card games. If 7-card stud gets really popular, it's not crazy to think that Raz will increase in popularity as well. Yeah. Something along those lines.
All the reasons why I once thought PLO could flip No Limit are kind of mitigated by these mini games that are being added to No Limit. So No Limit, especially without an ante, was like far not gambly enough of a game where two things happen. One, it gets kind of boring. And two, especially in a live setting. And two, the fish just get torched. Like the fish who aren't good just get completely torched at 9-handed, no limit.
Wouldn't the same thing happen to PLO? You think there's enough variance that
they get torched, but yeah, they can win. Like when I say get torched, I just mean a pretty bad no limit player sits down in a 8 max live setting and probably loses between 80 and 90% of the time, like a bad player. In PLO, they might lose 60% of the time or something like that. They might even win a majority of the time and just take huge losses when they lose based on how much they're gambling it up and how much people are willing to gamble it up with them. But it creates a lot more variance short term, which, creates a lot of things, not the least of which is it gives you the illusion that you might be winning at the game or whatever. It's also more fun. It's just fun to win, obviously. Right. And so if you're a fish and you're like, I'm a losing player, like, are you really going to go play no limit hold'em with 7 guys who don't talk and there's no ante in the game and you're supposed to fold some ridiculous hands versus a 3-bet? Or are you going to go play PLO where like it's just never bad to play 4 cards? And like if you're stuck, like you can just 4-bet pot it with like the Jack 10 7 4 1 suit, and like you're just not in that bad a shape versus aces, and you can kind of rip it in there and try to win your money back. But now you have like all these games like Squid and stuff that are increasing variance a lot. You have big ante games. I think it's shifting it back in the favor of short-term variance, which is good for fish, and then also just making the games way more fun to play and to observe.
I think that point is very, very valid. And I think it's a sweet spot right now. I don't know how long it will last, but your point of increasing variance for all parties involved, not just fish, but the weaker pros as well as the good pros. It does redistribute money a lot. Like, when I was coming up, I would win 8 out of 10 sessions. Now I win like 5.3 out of 10.
Yeah, fair.
But money changes hands, and that's really important. That's always been the value that I've offered at high stakes. Is I'm a distributor. It's like money's going to flow through me one way or another, and I might take a tax along the way.
And that's just important for the long term of the ecosystem.
Agreed.
Right? Yeah.
For the health of the game, I think it's important. But what it's not is nearly as volatile as PLO. I think, and again, I don't have a ton of experience, so it's hard for me to speak from a pro's perspective. But PLO has such high volatility, especially if you're playing like 9-handed, that it actually forces the inverse to happen, where all of the pros become nits. And a lot of the VIPs will look up to the respected pros and they'll try to mimic. And then nut peddling actually does get heavily encouraged, at least from a pre-flop standpoint, because you just can't absorb that much volatility and variance. It's so easy to flop a pair plus draw with any 4. Pretty much, maybe if you eliminate like the bottom 15% of hands, but you could play close to deck and you'll find yourself in what feels like a high equity spot, but there's just dozens upon dozens of combinations that have you literally drawing effectively dead. And I think that rarely happens in no limit hold'em. So if you get out of line and you play the 8-3 of clubs and it comes Queen Jack 3 2 clubs, you're clean, buddy. You might be against a better flush draw, and you might be against a better pair, but you're not going to be against both. So but
you also hit that flop a lot less, to be fair.
Yeah, for sure. I'm speaking more. Missing, though, is a good thing when you're a bad player, right? Like, it's not...
It's easy to play.
Yeah, it's not ideal to be check folding, but it is important to have check folds for all players, good, bad, or indifferent. And in PLO, that's really hard. Like, that's actually how the fish get filleted, is that they very rarely have a flop check fold. And it's the river node that they're under defending at such a great frequency that they're absolutely getting torched there.
Do we think we'll get
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, do we think that we'll see these carnival games in No Limit Hold'em make their way into like the majority of the games, the
public games?
Yeah, the public games.
It's hard.
Right? Like, that's what I mean. Like those, that's good for, poker in the ecosystem.
It's driving things private.
Yeah, right. But it only exists private and at the highest stakes.
But the thing is, like the 1-3 and the 2-5s are like the ecosystem is kind of like never going anywhere.
It's just going to always be the bottom.
That's true too.
That's true.
It's a breeding ground.
Yeah. Right. So like as you move up in stakes,
but it's like the 5-10, right? Like the 5-10 specifically, it desperately needs it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Not even all the 5-10s have antes. So I think like the easy.
And I mean, how often do you see Squid in a 5-10?
You can't. You just can't, because people can just quit.
Yeah.
Right. Like you can just walk away.
That's true.
And that becomes really problematic.
Yeah.
Right. So you could, there's an opportunity for a third party escrow. And the casino itself could maybe facilitate that.
That seems too complicated.
But it's very complicated because now you have to come out of pocket.
The whole reason that like No Limit Hold'em itself is so popular is because of the simplicity of it.
Right.
Right. So when you start adding all these different, and I think that's why you'll never see PLO like flip, No Limit Hold'em because it's more complicated, right? You got 4 things.
That's
you
great.
have to use 2 cards,
point.
right?
That's a very good point. Yeah.
Can I say a couple things from the chat?
Yeah, please.
One, shout out to Efro, who just said that they're adding to the OnlyFriends fam and having a baby. That's really awesome. 2, somebody in the chat asked, "What's the Solana of poker?" Maybe deuce to 7, no limit single draw.
Yeah.
It's kind of flashy
Pineapple.
and new and fun, and
Such a good game.
Right.
it's a great game. Didn't you go deep in a
Don't please.
World
let's-
Series?
let's-
Well,
that was limit, right?
Thanks for asking. It was triple draw. I had to text Ryan Lang right as I'm looking at
the GOAT, of course.
Obviously. Well, I just need to know somebody that was up at midnight and that can tell me in 7 words how to play the game.
I feel like Grok could have done an equally, if not
Grok
better,
didn't exist
job.
back
Okay,
then.
that's fair. That's a fair point.
I had
Yeah, but
Ryan
Grok
Lang.
won't invite you over for a 5th of whiskey.
That's also true. That's
True.
also true. Yeah.
And you know what? I ended up getting 9th in it. Thank you for asking.
Yes. That's right.
Congratulations, sir.
Right.
It was sad. It was
I think
sad.
short
That's a
deck.
sweet run when you don't know the game very well.
It was fun.
I think short deck's the Solana. of
There you go.
poker.
Yeah.
It's still hanging.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
It's still hanging around, but it's probably going to die.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Good point. I was gonna say that game's gone.
Yeah.
But no, you're right.
I mean, it's really popular in Asia still.
Yeah.
It is funny to compare the two because, like, when you talk about the simplicity, like Bitcoin is so popular because it's simplistic, right? It's just Bitcoin. It's this, and then you go to Ethereum, and there's layer 2s and there's smart contracts, and it's ultrasound money. It's programmable money. Who knows? Like, yeah.
It's money
that's
that's
true.
going downward.
Right. Yes.
I saw a
Where's
tweet
the
the other
bottom?
day that FTX is going to start paying out this week, and if you had Bitcoin locked up on there, I think you get
It
like
was 18.
$19,000 or something because that's what Bitcoin was worth at the time.
Right.
And the good news is if you had Ethereum on there, you get the
You get
exact same amount.
price. That was a me. Was so
$79
good.
bucks.
That's
Yeah, it was like you
insane.
get
But it's
$13
kind
for
of-
Solana or something.
It's beautiful because the people who, and by the way, I'm guilty of holding Ethereum too long.
Well, I still have it too.
Don't put it that way, but
Everybody is.
But the people who were holding Ethereum on there probably want to buy Ethereum back, so they're stoted.
Yeah.
like a lot of them still believe in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could do well. I don't know, but
Right.
none of us truly know. But well, Vitalik knows.
Sure.
He's the only one.
Dude, I
If he's
saw him
planning it to
petting
go
a
to
fake
zero, it's going
dog
to
the
zero.
other day. It's a little scary.
Wait,
Wait,
say what?
I said I saw him petting a fake dog the other day.
Oh, yeah?
You know those robot dogs?
Yeah.
He was too enthused.
I mean, he's kind of like a robot himself, so.
He's an interest. Did anyone
Or an
see
alien
the
or something.
Did anyone see the meme with the bulge and it's just like it's like veering down and it's the graph just of Ethereum going down and like this was clearly the top of the market. We should have seen it coming.
That's pretty incredible. While we're talking poker, carnival games, and a lot of high stakes gambling, there was a new episode of High Stakes Poker that was out yesterday. Don't know if you guys happened to catch it, but one major highlight came through, which was the biggest pot ever played in high stakes poker history. And that's kind of saying something. I mean, on one hand, it shouldn't be surprised, right? Like we're 20 years into this experiment. The notion that somehow they were playing bigger pots in 2005 than we would be playing in 2025,
Right, yeah.
the Bitcoin era, does seem ludicrous. It almost seems more ridiculous that it took us this long to break the former record.
Well, how long did the former record stand? Do we know?
No, actually,
don't know, but, like,
that's fair.
Yeah.
Somebody may have played a bigger pot than like the Durr Greenstein
Yeah.
one.
But those were like
Wait.
iconic.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Is this really going to be a Keating Peter hand for the biggest pot? That's unreal.
How could it not be?
These two have been just battling heads up at 8-handed tables for the last month and a half. It's unbelievable.
To be fair, and this is not taking anything away from Keating, but anybody who has the pleasure of playing with Peter that's willing to sit deep could easily become his rival.
Yeah.
Like his rival is just whoever has the most chips in front of him that day. And it just so happens that when Keating's in the lineup, it's going to be Keating.
Yeah.
So we do see another situation where he appears to get the best of Peter. in a spot where I don't think Peter thought he was gambling as hard as he was. Not sure what happened pre-flop here, but Keating flatted a 4K raise, so somebody opened. I imagine it was either over a 2K straddle to 4.
Keating ended up making it like 69 over.
Peter makes it 13,000 squeezing with ace 3 of spades, and Keating back raises the 69K. And it's like, this is one of those situations where if you're not Peter, you just got to look to dump the ace 3 suited. You know, like ain't nobody fucking around in this spot. And if they are, you're still probably in bad shape. You know, it's probably like the ace 5 suited or better. Yeah. But when you're Peter and gambling is at the forefront, we just ride, baby. Now he catches one of the better flops, King Jack Deuce, 2 spades, the king uncovered, and Keating doesn't have the king of spades, which is really nice for him. So it goes check by Peter, half pot by Keating, which is, you know, in the theory land, maybe going to be a little bit big in position with top set, but against a guy like Peter, he's either going to have something continue or he's not. And on a board like this, he's got something. So Peter chooses to check raise to 200K. I thought Keating's choice to just flat and trap was an interesting one, because they only had 400,000 behind, and there's already 560,000 in the pot or something.
Just for the times where he's just airballing it.
When he's on the button, what do you think there's more chances of? Like Peter folding air there, or him continuing a bluff, right?
I guess I just think for that sizing, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I would just be shocked to see a bluff.
Yeah, I mean,
he's just put in so much of his stack.
Just kind of never know, right? I guess.
Well, I mean, he has the hand that like you're okay trapping with.
Yeah.
You know, it's like ace king of spades and kings are the ones that you're just like, okay, I call.
Yeah.
Like, good luck. Any turn is the money's still going to go in.
Yeah. What kind of turns do you think could come where he just shuts it down? Or
Peter?
Where like ranges that he has.
It's tough to say because I would assume he either got overset in this spot, or has a hand that's drawing dead, like ace king,
right,
or king jack, or has a flush draw.
Yeah, so like those are all going in on the turn anyways, right? What's the downside?
I guess the downside is similar to what Jesse was talking about yesterday with the nines. You know, getting it in is like an 80+% favorite, versus like, you know, the turn coming a spade, and now either one pair shutting down, or you're up against the flush, and now you're the dog, with one to come and running it twice. You know, it's kind of just like a manipulation of equities. I wouldn't even mention this point because strategically it's not really relevant. Trapping with kings is obviously good, but it's more so the pot is so large and so much money's already being committed. I think it's interesting from the vantage point of like, okay, well, the other question is like, what does Keating call there that ever folds? You know what I mean? Like, not to like kind of take a shot at Peter here, but it's like when he calls the 200K and has 300 behind, like,
he's obviously never folding.
What do we have fold equity against here?
Yeah,
like, we're just dead. You know, it's kind of
interesting the way the two sides there in this pot, because like, if he does just turn a spade, that really does suck, because now we just get it in, run it twice, and we're a dog. So it's like,
that's no fun.
Yeah,
I think if we ran it in theory land, kings is a really easy flat because you're blocking so much of the top pair, which is the hands that you don't want to lose on a bad turn. That they're just way more likely to have a draw that isn't folding regardless.
That's true.
Or a bluff. But there's a couple things going on. One, exactly what you said. He just went so big, and it's such a unique sized pot. For somebody to raise this large, they're probably just erring towards not folding ever.
Right.
And two, the fact that you can run it twice and variance matters in the real world means that it's quite nice to just get the money in ahead and run it twice.
I think, not to be nitpicky, but from a theory standpoint, if our notion is facing check raise, we just play call, we would never size half pot on the flop. Like that half pot size is basically front loading enough money into the middle to where if we get raised, all the money's committed, right? Because Keating goes on the bigger side, and now like a good theory check raise size, if there even are any, versus half is going to be like 2.2x because of stack manipulation.
So let's say he did go 2.2x. I think you do play call with kings because they're representing extremely polar range. That should have some bluffs, and the bluff should not be ever a hand that has very much equity that isn't calling off regardless.
Right.
So I think you just call because you're blocking so much of their value that you just call and play a turn and let them continue.
This is a question I actually don't have the answer to, but do you think that I imagine the answer is no, but I'm curious if it would matter at all if the solver was able to consider the fact that you get to run it twice. Because obviously when the first outcome is fixed anyway, like no matter, like your point is valid in the sense to translate, if they have a high equity hand that's always calling off, you're always going to see the turn in the river and they're going to be what they're going to be. So you can't manipulate anything, right?
Yeah.
But in the sense of running it twice, you actually do kind of get to manipulate things a bit because now you see an additional turn and river as opposed to just a river. But the counter to that obviously is that it doesn't matter because the equities don't change. He could still hit a spade on.
Doesn't work both ways though, because like now, like if it comes clean or pairs the board, now you're a huge favorite, or he's just drawing dead.
Of course.
Yeah.
But also, like if you get in on flop, then we have to run it multiple times.
Right. You see 4 cards instead of just 2. Yeah. I mean,
I just don't know if it comes out in the wash. Like
I'm doing the thing that I just accused other people of doing, where I said that like with the early level thing, they default back to the qualitative thing.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, but I'm winning so much, and I'm doing the same thing of like, yeah, but like there's this upside if we do this one thing. Obviously, it doesn't matter. Like I'm answering my own question.
Gotcha.
It truly doesn't matter from a math standpoint, from a quantitative standpoint. I guess like. The thing that I'm latching onto that I don't think is real is that we're doing this in order to extract money from his bluffs, which I would posit don't exist. And that's no slight against Peter. It's just when you size this way, it's really hard to have a hand like ace deuce of hearts or like, bottom pair and a backdoor or something.
Queen 9
like
of clubs.
Yeah.
I think what does really exist and what does matter is that you don't have infinite money.
Yes.
Nobody does. I mean,
which is, I think, why I keep defaulting back to the qualitative thing.
Yeah. And that's fair because at some point, if you take on enough variance, you are out of the game.
Right.
And that matters. So like there's a massive difference between getting to run it as a 75% favorite. If you think your opponent's never folding the jam and you think they have some draws, there's a massive difference between getting to run as a 75% favorite twice always, and sometimes the flush comes off and you call off turn, and now you're whatever it is 30% or something, and now you run it twice that way. Enough of those differences could destroy your roll, depending on like how much money you have and all that. So I do think that this stuff's relevant. I had a friend who we would discuss this a lot. This was like years ago. I was putting him in some cash games, and one thing I really liked about him was he would always forego these higher variance small edge spots because he's just fully confident in the fact that he's winning in the game, and he was like, look, like if I take enough of these spots where I'm clearly making a little bit, but I have to play these massive pots, I'm going to have much bigger swings, and then I'm going to have to like deal with the mental side of that, and I'm going to have to take more days off because I just know like if I have enough downswing, if I have a large enough downswing, like I'm going to have to take some days off and just kind of like reset mentally.
It's very self-reflective.
Yeah, it's really nice. He now lives in Norway and he's a gym teacher, I believe. So take that for he's
a lot of mental days.
He's actually he's living the best life.
I'm sure.
He doesn't miss it at all. But I thought that was really impressive that he kind of thought that way.
Yeah.
And pretty quickly. That was like pretty early into his like professional poker time.
I agree with you for what it's worth, especially from the investor standpoint. You love to hear that.
Yeah.
Assuming that you're playing high enough where it matters. Now, if you're backing somebody for 2-5, you hate to hear that.
Well, even then, they're still going to get more hours in, so they're going to make a higher amount of money regardless of, like, because it matters to them, the swing.
Yeah, sure, in theory.
So, like, even if you're putting a guy in at like 50 cents a dollar online, like, the swings don't matter at all to me, but they might matter to that person.
Well, I guess that was my point, is that it's a symptom of a greater problem, right? So if you just communicated like, actually you have an infinite roll, you shouldn't have any mental days over this. And they're like, well, I still will. It's like, okay, well, you're not going to make it, right? Because the nature of the game is such that no matter how much you try to control for variance, you just can't.
Yeah, but I think none of us are above having emotional responses.
Of course not.
I mean, I'm sure you've taken days off where you're like, oh, the games are good, but I just can't do it today.
Absolutely.
Weekly.
Absolutely.
So I think there is something to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
is it really weekly?
For him? Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's go. I
God.
thought Berkey was a machine. I like to hear these humans.
Let them fucking hit him over the head a couple times. Something else happens.
Times.
It's over.
He's weak, boys. Let's go.
I'm losing $1 million a week. I mean, it's hard. You got to take a day. No, I agree with you. What I was trying to illuminate is that no matter how much you try to control for that stuff, there's enough variance baked in that you will just hit that run of negativity. It's inevitable. So you're slowing the bleed, to speak.
But you're reducing the number of days that you have to take off instead of of course he'll hit a downswing and have to take days off, but he's reducing how many per month on average he'll take off.
Because the more you play, the more probable it is to hit these lulls too.
Yeah, but you're getting more hours in per.
No, like the idea is that pot over pot, I don't want to look like an EKG.
Yeah.
But even if you try to control for that, session over session, you're still going to look like an EKG. So just because you're not pressing these tiny edges doesn't mean that you're not still over the duration of 8 hours going to suffer the inevitable swings, and they're not going to impact you emotionally the same way that a single pot would, right? We're just kind of drilling down on different data points, but the outcome ultimately is the same.
Yeah, but so if he's reducing his variance, he has like less, let's say minus 2,000 big blind drops.
Yeah, less
X
extremes.
Let's say that there's a threshold. Let's say it's 2,000 big blinds where he needs to take 3 days off.
Right.
He's going to have less of those per 10,000 hands or whatever. So he gets to put in more hours on average per month.
Oh, see, I don't think he'll have less of them per 10,000 hands. I think he'll have less single instances of them. So it'll just take more hands to reach.
Yeah, so he gets to play more hands.
But he's playing more hands.
Yeah.
That's my point. So it's still going to be about the same.
No, because you only play so many hands an hour. So you get more hands per break.
Right. So say the high variance guy reaches a 2,000 big blind downswing every 100 hands. This is an extreme case, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the low variance guy reaches it every 500 hands.
Yeah.
But the low variance guy gets to play 3 times more often.
So that's a way higher win rate.
Yes. It's
that's
higher.
a way higher monthly, let's say.
Yeah, it's higher, but like it's my greater point is that like you're not able to remove it altogether. And we don't know that it's 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x. You know what I mean? Like we can't really quantify what the swings are for a guy like me versus a guy like that, as far as like their down stretches, because his 2,000 big blind downswing might just be losing 100 blinds for 20 days, where my 2,000 big blind downswing might be a session, right? But we both achieve it.
Yeah, but if your win rates are similar and he's foregoing just the smallest edges, but he gets more hands in per month than you, he's just going to outperform you.
Yeah. The part I'm disagreeing on, I think, is like that the more hands per month is as exaggerated as it may be, right? Because what I'm getting at is that these two extreme examples where I lose 2,000 big blinds in a day and he loses 2,000 big blinds over 20 sessions. The break I assume he would have to take after his stopping point would be much longer, because it was 20 days that led to it. Whereas like my recovery time losing 2,000 big blinds in a day might be like 24 hours.
So basically
it kind of
you're
works
saying,
in the inverse.
I think what you're essentially saying is that your breaks are less long because you're more used to the downswing.
Yes, precisely.
I mean, that's a fair counter argument.
Yeah. So I guess like ultimately I do agree that he'll probably play more hours, but I think it's going to be like, not that significant, like maybe 5% more.
I think he was kind of like operating on an all other things being equal type of thing.
Yeah.
But your counter argument could be very real.
Yeah. I've just found, and I didn't mean to make this about your friend or anything like that, but
No, screw that guy.
I've just found that in the gambling world, the person who is trying to lay off risk tends to be the one who is doing significantly worse. He might be more stable, and I think that's what you're speaking to in this particular instance, but I think it's really hard to find a way for his bottom line to be greater.
Yeah.
That's just my experience, and I'm not speaking personally. I'm saying like what I've observed. When I look around and see the guys that have been around for 20 years and have accrued a fair amount of wealth, they're all risk takers. And they're all guys that are looking for a 5 to 10% edge, not avoiding it because they think an 80% edge is down the line.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are operating in very different ways too. Like, he would never play the stakes that you're playing simply because if he reached the point where he could get into those games and play them, maybe if he had like a backer for them, but I don't see a world where he would have played those without just already retiring from poker. Like, when I said he's living his best, he really is. Like, he won the game. Like, he's just living in the country he wants to live in. He's got an awesome wife. He has 2 beautiful kids. Like, he's doing his thing.
To be fair, when I say not going to make it, that's with
yeah, you didn't mean it as a bad way.
Yeah, I mean, it's air quotes of like what the standard of making it would be, which is accruing some level of high wealth.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like his version of high wealth is having enough money to relocate and choose the career that he wants to pursue.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what he did. And that may be very low, a very low bar to achieve. It might be like 100,000 instead of like 10 million. Right? So massive different. Everybody has different goals, and there's room and space in the industry for both. Just as a general observation, it's like if I quantify making it as being like a 20-year gambler who's accrued millions of dollars, like, yeah, I would probably not want to filter for that type of personality. Too risk averse in a very risk on sort of atmosphere.
You have a very unique way of looking for people to invest in, and it's made clear through the way that you stipulate the terms of your investments. I've never heard anyone else doing this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you would essentially at one point in your career, you would give people like $100,000 and tell them like, pitch me on how you're going to get to like $1 million with it.
Yeah, I still do this. I basically have them just like give me, and to be fair, like I often provide the template.
Yeah.
But I basically say like, okay, if you're pitching me as your seed investor, sell me on the startup.
Yeah.
Sell me on how we're going to 10x this thing.
So you're looking for aspirational humans that want to be in the poker game long term, who, you know, clearly want to move up, and you're taking on a lot of volatility with that, and that's great. And you'll have some losers, and then you'll have like some big payoffs. Whereas like with this guy at least, like I was happy to look for someone who was just going to print some money for a while. Has a really good mental. We talk hands a lot. Like, he was good at poker. And, you know, anytime he wants to go on his way is basically fine with me.
That was the way I used to approach it. And I would actually be curious to hear your side of this, because you've probably done a lot more serious backing than I did. I did a lot of casual backing, but I used to approach it that way. When I backed Brian, it was of that way where I was just providing liquidity to somebody who was trying to make it or advance their career in some sort of capacity. But what I found was people who treated the game as a job, where they were trying to collect a check, were operating on a scarcity mindset, where they were trying to basically live check to check. Mm-hmm. And when you're financing that, it feels like in the moment, it's a low risk, low reward proposition. The problem is it actually becomes very high risk, low reward in my experience, because people who are trying to just get by to the next thing aren't actively searching for growth, and they're doing everything that I just said. Yeah, they're doing everything that I just said is so bad. Mm-hmm. They're trying to avoid volatility. They're trying to avoid taking edges. They're trying to do all the things to protect their current state for as long as possible. And for the horse, protecting that state is staying out of makeup.
Yeah.
So rather than their goal being to earn, and I'm not trying to project this onto the person that you were talking about, but and I'm also not saying this was exclusive to Brian. This was dozens of people that I had backed throughout the years. When it gets treated as, I'm your boss, you're my employee, and I'm going to give you a check, but that check is going to be based upon your performance week after week, they start to overly scrutinize their performance in the wrong ways. And rather than growth occurring, I think people get stifled down, and you ultimately end up with a losing horse.
Yeah, I think.
And it might be exasperated even more in MTTs, which I know you've done a fair amount of stables.
Yeah, I would say a few things. One, the more competitive poker gets, the more I like your approach more than mine, or I shouldn't even say mine because I don't always take this approach, but like the casual approach for sure. I think
like you have a skill and need money. I have money and don't want to do what you do. Let's marry.
Yeah. And also, the more competitive poker gets, the more you have to like find people who have this very all-in obsessive mindset towards the game, because otherwise they're just not going to improve at the rate that outpaces everyone else in the game, and they're not going to.
That's very well said. Yeah.
Yeah, but when I staked for live cash specifically, and this was like many years ago, I often staked people who I already knew I was friends with because I just.
Or you had to for the trust factor.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's. I mean, if you ever think about backing, for anyone listening, like. The trust factor is 100% of what matters, because you literally can't win money if they're scamming you.
Right.
But it would be friends who because we're friends, I know that they're good at poker, and the reason that they need, because if you're a winning cash game player at decent stakes, you shouldn't need a stake for very long. But I always knew like the reason they need a stake was something outside of their poker performance, right? Like maybe they lost money at something, or maybe they had to spend a lot of money on something. And so it was very much like you said, like a marrying of just current incentives. Like I have some money and you're good at poker. Mm-hmm. When you're backing for tournaments, or somebody who's literally got no money but is just like spending all day studying poker and playing cash online or something like that, I think that your approach is mandatory.
Yeah. Because it's a boom or bust industry anyway.
Yeah, and also I was backing at live cash back when live cash was way better and very public, and that's a big difference too. Yeah. If you played tight and you played 10-20 and you game selected at all back in like 2013, like you were going to print some money, and that just isn't true today. Like the games are much tougher. Most of them are private, but yeah, I would generally say that your approach is considerably better, or maybe just the only approach, or the only way you should think about backing. Also, for anyone who's interested in backing, I think that the traditional backing model, and I'm not saying that's what you're using.
No, it's quite
awful.
the opposite.
It's terrible.
50-50 makeup splits is bad for both parties.
Yeah, like I've had a number. I should just say this here. I've had a number of staking requests. Like I will never stake another person using the traditional backing model ever again. Like it's just terrible. The incentives are not aligned at all. Makeup's like a really bad way to go about it, because. Eventually, if somebody gets buried enough in makeup, it doesn't even really make sense for them to be interested in playing all that much. So whatever. I think staking kind of sucks for a lot of reasons, but there's a lot of other ways that you can create a business endeavor with somebody who's playing poker, and it goes very well. Yeah,
I mean, to kind of shine a little light on it, the way that I approach it once that whole pitch aspect goes through is I become basically an angel investor. Where it's like, okay, for X amount of dollars, I'll receive X percentage of the company, but you have to put in Y amount of dollars to fulfill the total seed round. So like, let's say this person's seeking 150K roll, and they come to me and they want 100,000. It's like, okay, well, I expect you to put up the other 50. And
I like that. That's actually, sorry to interrupt you, but that's... When I did the backing operation for mostly online MTTs that I did in 2021 2020 through like 2022, that's the biggest regret that I had, that I didn't make them put up like half of their buy-in or whatever, so that there was
skin in the game.
Yeah, just aligning incentives in that way is so.
They'll be so much more critical about what they play, shit like that. Yeah, and to take that a step further, I'm buying my equity share at.
Discount, some sort of
no, the opposite at a markup.
Oh, okay.
Right? It's like a round C type of raise where we're assuming that you are worth something.
That's
So it's like I'm buying at a markup where you're just inherently already getting a discounted rate on the remaining 50K that you're putting up, or whatever the case may be. And additionally, I'm going to structure it such that as you grow this business, you will then be able to claw back equity from me. So if we start at a 66-33 split, when the business is worth 150K, if you're able to double the net worth of the business without withdrawing any money, so without paying yourself, so to speak, and you're able to grow this thing to 300K, we can have a 50-50 split then. And if you want to take some sort of payment, then that's great. You could take it at 50-50 instead of taking a hit at 60. It's kind of like putting your money into an IRA or whatever, where there's a penalty for withdrawing early, kind of thing.
This is what you did for Bobby's room, right? I mean, not Bobby's room. JRB's game early, right?
JRB's game?
For the big game they used to play when you would.
Oh, my original deal. Yeah. This was brought to me by the guys that were putting me in that game were hedge fund managers, and they wanted to structure this way. It's like I had $500,000 at the time, and they're like, "Well, we don't want to fully fund you. We want to insure your $500,000." And the thing that people don't think about is like what happens when you lose, because that happened. So it started with a 5-to-1 split or 4-to-1 split. They put up $2 million, I put up $500,000. So we had a $2.5 million bankroll. But we're playing 3-6-12. Minimum buy-in is $100K, but I'm buying in for 2 because it's 150 blinds.
Yeah, you only have 2,000 big blinds.
Yeah, so you don't have that much money, right? So it's like inevitably you're going to hit the downswing, and I did. And what happens is the same thing happens in business. You put out another series to raise money, you dilute yourself, and that's precisely what happened. I went back to them for more investment. They gave me another $1 million. I took a dilution hit. Their original piece took a dilution hit, but they were the ones absorbing it because we weren't outsourcing elsewhere.
Yeah, you're not really diluting because, let's say you found new investors. The old investors don't have any of your action. So you're just sort of starting like a new operation almost. You're not really.
Correct.
Yeah.
But net sum, if I won back every dollar that I had lost, I would have recouped less of my investment.
Right.
Naturally.
But the more you won, you could buy back more.
Exactly.
Equity.
Precisely.
Right. Yeah.
Wait, why wouldn't you have, if you put another 500 in, why would you not have
I didn't put another anything in.
Oh, you didn't?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's like, and this is very common.
Was that by design, or you just didn't have the money or whatever?
I mean, I had money I was living off of, but you don't want your horse being all in like that. Like you want them to be able to support themselves.
No, I understand why you wouldn't. There's plenty of good reasons for that. I just meant, it's interesting because the original reason why you put some money in and why they want you to is a good reason. So I don't know why they wouldn't want you to put in money again. Now, if you can't put in money because you need it for life or whatever, I understand that.
Well, it's also just unnecessary. You're still heavily incentivized to do well and earn back.
Yeah.
You're just earning back now at maybe like 80% rate instead of 100.
Well,
so before it was dollar for dollar.
If you do like 4 rebuys, you're slowly becoming less and less incentivized to do well because, or to not gamble it up at least, which kind of sucks for them.
Yeah. Well, right. But again, remember that every new round is kind of buying at a bit of a markup, right? So getting back to 0, you're correct. But winning beyond 0, you're still getting that baked in free roll that you initially like crowdsourced or fundraised on.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Right. So when it was all said and done, I ended up having to raise. We were all in for $5 million. So I was up for $500K. They were in for 4.5. So it was a 9-to-1 ratio. And I had diluted myself down from, I think initially I had like 33%, and I diluted myself down to 17 by the time that I got even. But when I went on a $3 million upswing, because of the way we had the structured payouts, I got paid somewhere in the neighborhood of like 25%. So I was diluted from the original, like I probably would have made like 40 if we had never lost, but I was still making more, or I was making at least 1-to-1 what I had invested. Or no, I was making way more than what I had invested, right? I was diluted 9-to-1, but I was still getting 25%. So I'm getting 4-to-1 payout on my money.
Yeah, I don't really understand why you still had so much of yourself, why you weren't diluted down to 10% if you've only put up 10%. But it doesn't really matter. That's
it's because
not what's important.
It's because what I was selling, or what I was raising the money at to begin with. They were giving me a free roll on it.
Okay.
Right. So it's like for every dollar I put up, they're putting up like $1.25.
Okay. So
something to that effect.
Okay, so you're getting a really nice like VIG essentially on
Yeah.
what you're selling,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
fair. You
effectively.
found a way to get into a really good game, and like that's worth something. The only issue I was going to say with the model that you used for people that you're backing, and if it's the exact same model where they're putting up a piece, it becomes more convoluted. But this is just generally the problem with staking in general. Is if you ever like, let's say they lost their $100,000, right?
Yep.
Would you have put up more money?
It would have been the same thing, right? So it's
So you
like,
okay.
I would have put it up for a dilution of their equity. Basically, I would have been buying out some of their equity.
So the problem with staking in general is if you're willing to ride with the person as far as you need to go in terms of makeup and winning back like losses, then you're and you know it's a fair equitable split, then you should be fine if they're a winning poker player. If you're ever going to give up on the person, for whatever reason, let's say they just haven't studied or they've become worse at poker, or like you can't handle the swings anymore, or you don't have the bankroll anymore, you have just made a really bad investment. Because, for instance, if you're backing them for MTTs, if you ever drop somebody in makeup, you've essentially bought all of their buy-ins at 2.0 markup.
Yeah.
If you're doing a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Nobody's winning almost any MTT except for live at over 100% ROI. It's just not happening.
The problem with viewing it that way is it doesn't consider the other side, where you are not dropping them and keeping them in makeup, in which case now they're taking out a very high interest loan.
What do you mean? Oh, if they have to pay their makeup back?
No. Just when they're playing basically for zero. So when they're just literally playing to erase makeup, what's happening is they're actually self-funding and just having to repay a loan now. So it would be the equivalent.
Wait, why are they self-funding?
Because they cannot make $1 until they give you their money back.
Yeah, but they're not putting any money in.
Right. So they're borrowing.
Well, no. They're just still filling out the same staking agreement.
Yeah,
that you
it's an
initially
agreement, but like if you want to look at it from the standpoint that you were buying at 2.0, the other side of
themselves, or they would have,
which is why they're borrowing.
Yeah, but there's a difference between borrowing and somebody putting up capital for your business to operate, right?
I agree, which is why this model is so fucked.
Yeah. I think we're saying the same thing in different ways.
We kind of are, but it's really important to acknowledge that the theoretical model of makeup is just borrowing at a really high interest. Because
it's not borrowing because you never have to pay it back if you lose.
And get cut.
So like there have been deals in the past that I've heard of.
You have to pay it back if you don't get cut and win.
Right.
But it's
so when you're winning,
it's a free roll. So it's not a
free
loan.
roll. When you're winning, you're borrowing at 50% interest.
Right. But when you're losing,
if you're at stone zero and you give me $1,000 to go play an event that I didn't put any up on, I borrowed $1,000 and I'm going to pay you back $1,000 plus 50% equity.
Yeah. But you can't quit. Also, you can't.
Right.
Because if you quit, then you do owe. Right.
Yeah.
And your backer has to. Your backer has to drop
I've
you.
never had a backing deal with anyone where if they quit poker, they owe
Not
me
quit
any money.
poker, but like quit and then
You can't quit the backer.
quit the backer.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
right,
fair. But
right.
I mean, there's other like life options. You can go
Yeah.
like work for
I'm
a
being a
company or
little bit
something.
I'm being a little bit pedantic,
Yeah.
but the reason I'm framing it this way is because it's too one-sided to look at it as buying at 2.0. You're right that you made a quote-unquote bad business decision in the sense that it was a losing endeavor. But like founders invest money into businesses that fail all the time. I would frame it more that way, is that you invested in a failed business.
Yeah, but in my mind, the difference is when you invest in a business and it fails, there can be situations where you look in retrospect and you say like, this had a very good chance of succeeding, blah, blah, blah. Most of the time when you invest in a business or when you invest in a poker player and it doesn't do well over a long period of time, you can look back and say like, I don't think that would have done well regardless. Like they just weren't in the right mindset, or they weren't ready to play these stakes or whatever. They might be good down the road, but at that time period in their life, like I probably made a mistake investing in them. Obviously there will be exceptions to that rule.
Yeah. Well, I think the exceptions tend to be when you don't get to do it for a long period of time because what you chose to do was too capital intensive. So if you like, for instance, decide like, oh, Landon's a good poker player, he's probably winning in high rollers.
Put him in all the Tritons.
I'm going to start putting him in ABI of 25Ks.
Yeah.
And you have $1 million. And you're like, okay, kid, go fire. And he bricks his first year and loses like 600,000. And you decide like, oh, he's not a winning player. I got to cut him. When you look at the sample, he might have only played like 100 bullets. You know what I mean? Or I guess if it's an ABI, let's say it's an ABI 50K. You know, he plays 100 bullets. You run up $500,000 in makeup, and you decide like, oh, this is losing.
That'd be 5 million for what it's worth. So you don't even have to do. It'd be like 20 bullets or something.
Oh yeah, okay, fine.
16 bullets.
Right. Okay, but let's say he plays like 100 bullets, and cashes some along the way, but ultimately nets out negative 600K.
Yeah.
It'd be very easy to look at that and be like, okay, he's a losing player. Like you're out. But 100 games is fuck all when you're talking about an MTT sample. So it's like you just flew too close to the sun. It was way too capital intensive what you took on, and it was a bad business dealing from the investor side.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like most of the time, it's not so much like, oh, we took a good shot. It's most of the time it's like I made a bad investment.
It's set up to fail somehow.
Yeah.
Either from the player standpoint of not being ready or studied or whatever, or the backer standpoint of not actually modeling out what it's going to take from a capital standpoint and being able to quote unquote reach the long term.
Yeah, like for instance, the big group that I had going, I blame myself a lot because I bit off more than I could chew with the number of people that I was working with.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't stay on top of like how each one was performing. And I had a couple things, like I had people that I was hoping that would work with me on that sort of stuff, and they became busy with other projects.
Sure.
But there were a number of things that I did wrong that looking back, I was like, it's actually funny because I did make money overall on the project, but not a ton.
Yeah.
But looking back, I was like, yeah, this just couldn't have been wildly successful without running exceptionally hot for X, Y, and Z reasons. And I feel like that's, if you're truly honest with yourself, like most of the time in poker backing, you'll find out that was true.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that.
But the reason why I want to differentiate so hard about it not being a loan is because I've heard of backing deals where people actually owe their makeup if they quit poker. And that is a loan.
Yeah.
That's a high interest loan. And that's obviously a terrible decision by the person who receives the backing.
Right. Yeah.
But that's literally a loan with 50% of your winnings interest rate, which is crazy to me.
Yeah. But the greater that number becomes, the more that still kind of holds true. If you start to get like 1,000 buy-ins deep in makeup, and your options are quit poker and have forgiveness, or keep working for this specific person with no means to an end, you basically are just kind of fucked in a spot where it really is the equivalent of just defaulting on a loan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But again, I think this just speaks to like how bad the 50-50 makeup deals tend to be when you look at them structurally and look at the incentives, how disaligned they are. It's really bad for the player when he's winning, and it's really bad. Like it's a bad outcome for the player when he's winning, because now he basically took a high interest loan, and it's low incentive to play. So it's really bad for the backer when he's losing, because now there's no end in sight, and every hour that he puts in is worth like negative dollars, basically.
I would say that the 50-50 backing deal is net negative for the backer almost always.
Yeah.
If you can ever just buy action for tournaments or cash games or whatever, it's obviously significantly better. If it's infinitely better without markup. If there is some sort of markup, it's almost always significantly better.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as human beings, it becomes worse because we're very good at like hanging on to bags.
Yeah.
Like you see in crypto, like we're like Ethereum's screwed, but like we just like hang on to it anyways. Yeah. And so like when you have makeup and you're like, now I get 100% of whatever somebody wins, like it's really easy to kind of like convince yourself that they're winning in games that they're not winning in.
And to like overlook their incentive profile. Like I know a lot of backers who are at least smart about that stuff and will pay some sort of hourly to the horse while he's trying to grind out of makeup.
Oh yeah. I did a ton of things like that where I'd say like, okay, the next like 5K or 10K that you win, we'll pretend you have no makeup and you can just split it off.
Yeah.
When they needed life expenses.
Yeah.
Or let them buy pieces of themselves or whatever.
That's really common.
Yeah, like
most of the time they don't have it though to buy. Like usually if you're that deep, you've exhausted your resources.
Yeah, that's true.
That's like the risk reward of the backer, especially in the 50-50 deal, right? It's the end could be nowhere. Like it could just you could just keep shoveling money forever. And if they do win, they often quit you.
Right.
Before you can like actually make,
which they have
make
to
enough money for the risk that you're putting up.
Yeah, they have to. And again, like I can't reiterate this enough, but like when you're winning, you are just taking a high interest loan.
It seems like the upside just isn't enough to weigh the downside.
Yeah. I think where that might not be true is online. Because they can put in so much volume.
True.
And you have a lot of churn. Like I've talked to Pads about this, and it's like just being good at churning people out and recognizing like, okay, we have a hard stop at like 1,000 games with a negative ROI or whatever the case may be. Like we only need to see X amount of volume before we recognize that like this ROI is probably pretty accurate. Having that much data at your fingertips is probably worth a lot. But then again, the environment becomes a lot tougher. So you're constantly reevaluating and taking analytics of saying like, okay, well, what can we expect our top tier guys to make annually from an ROI perspective if we put in an ABI of X? What about the guys who have an ABI of X divided by 2? You know what I mean? Like what's their top line and stuff like that? And, basically coming to grips of like, well, is it even worth it? Like once I run some risk calculations on top of this and see what the standard deviations are, where maybe we run 3 standard deviations below EV, what does a year like that look like compared to a year where we run 3 standard deviations above EV? You might just be looking at like super fucking skinny margins, where it's just like, what am I doing? Like this isn't for me, and it shouldn't even be for them. Like no one's gonna flourish under this model.
Every business sounds better and sounds more exciting until you get into the minutia of it, and then you realize that the margins are thinner than you thought, and all the downsides are terrible. And there's a backing group that you just reminded me of. I won't say their name just because I'm not sure that they want to have it said, but they do a different sort of operation where they get. I won't get these numbers right, but for example, they might do they get 70-30. Mm-hmm. But every 500 games, your makeup resets.
Oh, yeah. I've seen the resetting deals before. Yeah,
and those are really kind of smart. If you think about it from what you're talking about with Pads, where I don't think Pads does this. But
keeps the backy interested and wanting to play and being able to earn.
Incentivizing them to play.
And then also, it gives you more points where you can get out of the staking deal happily if you don't think that they're doing well or playing well.
Right.
Anymore, because
it's not like you're so buried where you feel like I just have to have them play because you're getting 100% of it back.
Yeah, if makeup resets, then you just have a net neutral situation where you're like, leave. Okay, do I want to be involved in a new staking deal?
Yeah.
And that's really important. Yep. And if you run the math, I haven't really run the math to see if it's. They told me something like 70-30 for, I think it was like 500 or 600 games was. If you run like the variance calculations, it's the same as 50-50 for a long-term thing. I don't know. That sounds a little wild to me, but I mean, I would trust them. They're very smart people. I think that's just a way better deal for the backer, and actually a better deal for the backy.
For sure.
Just based on the fact that incentives are aligned means that the backy must be happier with it because they stay in the deal. So if that's true, then it's better for them.
Yeah. Again, though, I think that's like can only happen online. It's the only place where you can get enough volume.
Yeah.
Right. Of course, playing 500. I mean,
you can't have somebody play 500 hours live and say like, I mean, you could.
500 hours or 500 session. You were saying 500 games.
So. Well, but
this was for tournaments.
With tournaments, that's.
I mean, you get 500 games in a year, so you could reset it every year, essentially. Which
in what
500 what
live tournaments
in a year?
Yeah,
that's more than one a day.
Yeah,
that's like one
every
time.
Every time you re-enter a tournament is a new tournament.
I know. I understand. Yeah, but like 500.
No one's playing.
That's a lot, isn't it?
No one's playing 200 unique events a year, are they?
200 uniques.
Yeah, 300 uniques.
I would assume some grinders out there are. I don't, but
Becker maybe.
Yeah, 500.
Becker, I bet you Becker's playing well more than 200 uniques a year.
500 bullets in a year live seems like a lot.
Becker, yes,
but if you jump into a daily,
but even to your point, like, okay, so it resets every year. I mean, that's just that's the equivalent of just finding a new backer every year, which is pretty commonplace anyway.
I'm not even sure if you need 200 uniques a year to get to 500 because you can just show up to like a 400 circuit and fire 3 bullets on average, maybe in a day. These things make the money in a day. So I think 3 bullets on average. I think 3 bullets
on average.
Well, okay, so let's say it's like 2 bullets on average. You're right. Maybe you do need that many uniques, but if you're like chasing the circuit events,
player maybe.
no, because
right.
If structures are pretty fast, like I think that you can get 2 to 3 tournaments in a day at a series where they're playing.
Probably,
like they're having multiple events every day. I could be wrong, but
there aren't a lot of those for what it's worth. Like you're not going to Choctaw.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but that's like the tippy top of the volume.
I mean, it's kind of just like the WSOP.
Like nobody's putting in
That's what I'm talking about. People are chasing like WSP circuit or whatever.
Entries.
MSPTs, they have like a lot of events, I think.
Right, but they generally run like one a day.
I think they run
like
a couple.
Florida right now, you're not getting like 3 events a day unless you're talking about playing dailies alongside of it.
Well, yeah, you could throw some dailies in there.
Yeah.
How many entries do you think Bex does a year? He's obviously on like you said, he's at the end of the bell curve in terms of entries.
Yeah, I mean maybe it's around 500, but I also think like that's going to, if he cares about money, that's going to decline because like the person that you're describing is chasing really low EV spots, right? Like there just isn't a lot of win rate in a $200 daily. The rake is really,
and there might
really
be
high.
stipulations like you can't play $100 day, like it doesn't count, right? Like because.
Well, I mean, you're backing him. It's up to you what counts, I guess.
That's what I'm saying.
But I mean, the bigger point is that like when you're talking about like these sub $500 buy-ins, rake is a real problem. And
yeah, but your ROI could be very high in these.
After rake?
I don't know.
Before rake, sure, you could be winning the event a lot.
I don't have the answers to that, but I wouldn't be shocked to find out Bex is winning more than 50% ROI in these 230 dailies, 260 dailies.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's definitely possible. But again, like you're talking about $100 for an 8-hour event, so it's not like.
And the rake's like what, like 20% in those things?
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of like. Yeah. It's like, yeah, my hourly in a home 15%. Game where they're taking 3 big blinds per pot is probably high prior to rake, but post rake, I bet I'm not winning much, if anything at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, this stuff's all above my pay grade because I would never dabble.
To be fair, most of the resets on a live stake I've ever heard of were for cash.
Yeah, they're
or
always.
A mixture.
Yeah, I've done it once with cash. It was an interesting experiment. We did, I think, every 20 sessions, which would have been the equivalent of like 150 hours.
What kind of split were you getting?
60-40.
That sounds nice.
It was good. It was for Blaja 1020.
To be clear, you got the 40, right?
Yes.
Okay. That'd be pretty insane for the backer to only get 40 and then also give you a reset on makeup every.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know. I've never really looked into these cash.
But yeah, it was tricky. It was. It was way too long ago. It was like 15 years ago. So I wasn't super sharp about this stuff, and I just didn't think about it at all. I just treated it as though it was my money. But there probably are things to think about from an incentive standpoint. I was just lucky I went on a heater, and I won a bunch, so I got off it pretty quickly. But
yeah, sorry to.
No, go ahead.
I keep interrupting you. I feel bad.
No, don't.
You get me excited about these ideas. The problem is when you get close to a reset, you want to lock up wins sometimes, so you tighten up in the game.
Yeah, exactly. In the inverse, like if you're buried.
Yeah, you want to gamble it up.
Yeah, you have like no incentive other than to try to get unburied. So it's like being stuck when there's a ticking clock. Everyone's like, the game's going to break in an hour. It's like, but I'm down 6 buy-ins.
That's never going to go well.
This is actually similar to how trading desks work in a lot of trading firms where you have quarterlies or some time based payment payout period, and they're doing similar splits.
Right, yeah.
And I know guys who trade who are like, should have just not gambled it up before the end of the quarter. But there were a bunch of good spots. And there's a lot of volatility, man.
Obviously, nothing's going to be perfect, but I do think that there are better models out there.
Agreed.
I would be remiss if I didn't bring this up. I can't believe I forgot. This should have been what we led the show with. I got too carried away with all the other stuff, but we have some exciting news. After yesterday's podcast, a lot of people reached out. Thank you guys so much for showing so much love in the comments. We read every one of them. Appreciate it. Obviously, the love was felt. Got a lot of DMs, but I got one very special one. And we're in talks of being acquired by a major operator.
This has got to be some type of fucking troll.
April Fools.
How would you guys ruin it?
His silence
just can't fucking play along.
His silence ruined it.
That was dead on arrival, baby.
Did it?
Who's acquiring us, Berk?
Nobody. Nobody's fucking acquiring us. We'll get out of here on a few memes. Shout out to Razorfold, who, god damn it, Bolt, every fucking day. I don't understand.
You said we're gonna get out of here. He started moving.
It's not in his way, and he finds a way.
And he has 25% less chance of actually getting tangled in.
But somehow he hits the cord every single day. Razorfold, big shout out, put together a thread of Kessler memes. Since we were talking about him earlier, for every 10 likes, I'll make a new Kessler meme. This thread is like, I think 20 memes.
It's gonna become a full-time job.
Inconceivable is great.
It was.
Yes.
It's so good. So many memes. Well, I don't know why you started in the middle, but we'll just roll with it.
He had to go with inconceivable. He started with that one.
Man.
That was a good one.
I don't think that word means what you think it means. The aliens one's very good. Chainsaw Massacre, of course.
Yep.
Here's the 250 likes. Leo, of course. It's so good. That one's really great. Kessler actually retweeted one of these.
Oh man.
Is that's the girl from Finding Nemo, the braces one?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Apparently, he blocked the guy.
No, Kessler
did he?
loves this.
That's what he said. That's what the guy said on his Twitter.
The well done steak is too good.
That's incredible.
Oh yes, gotta have that
morning routine, Kessler.
Right.
The morning routine's pure.
Oh man, so good.
Oh, little
I'm trying to see the one
Jesus for Guapo.
I thought that there was one that I would recognize that Kessler retweeted, but maybe not. Anyway, shout out to Razorfold. That was a very glorious thread. And I haven't listened to this yet because we've been on air, but Caitlin put out a new video that I have to assume has something to do with April Fools,
of course,
and or comedy.
Watch me lose the most insane pot of my life. Am I the most unlucky poker player to ever exist? You're not gonna believe it, y'all. I made 3 of a kind. Did I just get angled in the Borgata? Whoa, it was totally unreal poker playing, y'all. Did the dealer ask me out? Y'all, the most insane thing happened. The floor guy tried to fuck me.
Oh man.
Oh, here it is. I'm sending it to you, Guap. I think I don't know this to be true. I haven't spoken to Caitlin, but if I had to guess, she actually was just reading YouTube titles of content creators.
That'd be that's a good
amazing.
Maybe minus the floor guy tried to fuck me.
That's pretty good.
I don't know.
She's so funny, man.
She really
is. God.
She's very topical, which I think is what's most important.
She's definitely on top of it.
You know, kind of like my attempt at an April Fool's Day joke today. You guys shit all over it. Thank you.
Don't say
much.
you guys. I was trying to play
Brian.
along.
We tried till you gasped for fucking air for 7 minutes.
You know,
that's an April Fool's joke.
Your joke was an April Fool's joke.
Hey guys, by the way, this is the 701st episode.
It is.
Just want to point that out.
That's right.
Congrats, guys. Congrats.
Well done.
Congrats.
We started with Berkey saying April Fool's jokes are stupid, and we ended with him trying to drop an April Fool's joke.
Right, of course.
You're a true master of deception, sir.
got 19 more of these things to go. That's going to do it for us today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back again tomorrow with Jesse here in studio as the tortoise heads back to the most glorious land.
Let's go, Bucks.
All right, let's not.
Don't
relax,
be Fox.
relax.
Enjoy Pittsburgh. We'll see you guys all noon Pacific tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.
Later, squad.
Peace.